So it is my pleasure to introduce to you, I'm Katie Shepard, all right. It's my pleasure to introduce to you one of my favorite speakers here today. He was assistant director for honors and a senior fellow, and currently is the director of programs for the YMCA at Virginia Tech. Mr. Blackwell is going to give us our keynote speech on trees. This is our big idea for the year. All right? Welcome, Mr. Blackwell.
Hello. What are the chances of you guys hearing me with no microphone? Yeah, how about in the back? No? Rob says no. Or Dr. Steve says no. He says? Okay. I'll try with the mic. This is obligatory, right? The sort of feedback and fumbling with the mic. You guys are kind of lucky because sometimes when I do a talk like this, if I pass some really interesting roadkill, I bring it in. And that's true. And I'm not an employee of Virginia Tech anymore, so I can't get in trouble for it. Okay. And somehow for this talk I got note cards, which I haven't done since like 5th grade history class, but that's what I got. So, hi, I'm Michael Blackwell. And let's start with a little activity. What I want you to do is close your eyes, and nothing bad will happen. And I want you to think back into your past. Could be your present still. Can everyone hear me okay? In the back? You guys all good? Okay. And I want you to think about if there's a tree in your life, that certain special tree. I don't mean like any tree, it's like one that you're really connected to. So like, if I asked you to sketch it, could you draw it? Could you like kind of sculpt it with something, some clay? Or someone cut it down, would you be pretty irate? Can you smell it? Like maybe it has flowers. Tree flowers are really interesting. They're really subtle and hard to see. Most people miss them. What are the leaves like? Are they coarse and rough? Some have like these really fine hairs underneath, tomentosa. Can you picture your tree? If you got one. If you don't, it's okay. There's no wrong answer. And what'd you do there? Like, why is it your tree? How did that happen? Okay. Can't do that one too long, everyone goes to sleep. So, just as a sort of baseline activity, who's got a tree? Raise your hand. Okay, that's interesting. And of all those people who raised their hands, who amongst you did someone say, go find a tree? Like, did you get a direction to do that? Raise your hand if someone kind of made you get a tree. Okay. That's interesting, right? Because about 2/3 of the crowd has a tree, but no one told them to do that. Okay, so file that one away. Today I'm going to talk about a couple different things, in hopefully some kind of sensible order. Depends how it goes. I want to do one thing first, which is, this is one of the things I'm going to be doing, so I'm going to kind of be offering what you might call like cultural design tools, things that you can use to design things, okay? Because you can use similar tools to design all kinds of things. And what I hope we're going to get to sort of at the end of the time is you guys thinking about how to design environments in which people could actually meaningfully connect to trees. But you could, turns out, coincidentally or not, that you could use those same tools to like design a community or design a workplace, design some kind of process that's, yeah. So one of those design tools I want to share with you right away is called, oh, and one more little preface thing, is that in some cases today I'm going to be talking about ideas that come from other cultures, especially Native American cultures, because I've had a number of Native American teachers. And I want you to know that the things that I'm sharing with you, I have permission to do so. Okay, I didn't like find them on the internet and then just sort of throwing them out to you, okay? So this one I want to say is called Throwing the Blanket. And basically it's like a storyteller, someone doing this kind of thing, will stand up and say, I'm going to throw the blanket. It means that I assume that I was invited not to like tell you a bunch of stuff you already knew and are affirmed in, but maybe to stir things up a little bit, to provoke you a little bit. And I love that root of the word provoke. It means just provocal. I want to get you guys talking. You grab this big idea, now you got to do something with it, right? So I'm hoping that at the end of this time, you have some tools and some ideas to really work with. But I want you to know that even if I provoke you, that I think we could agree that we're here for a similar purpose, like we want to have a good life, we want to make a good world for ourselves and for our people and our families, right? Okay, that's my intent. I'll fumble around for my cards. Okay, so another little cultural piece I want to share with you is called the Thanksgiving Address. And it comes from, the version that I know comes from the Mohawk people of what's now like New York, upper New York in Canada. And I'll just do a real simple version. I've heard versions of it that go like an hour. And so it'd be very traditional for those people, the Iroquois people, Mohawks, to start a meeting like this with about an hour of Thanksgiving. And if there's like English and Mohawk speakers, they'll do maybe half an hour, 45 minutes in Mohawk, and then half an hour, 45 minutes in English. And we actually, 3 years in a row, we had Mohawk chiefs come here about 10 years ago. And I sat in a room with 20 or 30 college students where a Mohawk speaker stood up and did like a 20-minute Thanksgiving in Mohawk and then a 20-minute Thanksgiving in English, which is a different pace than you guys are used to. And for a while, it was super awkward. And then something happened, like it settled in. People understood what was happening. So I'm just going to share a really brief one with you. This is taught to me by Jake Swamp. And they gave this tool because they say that they want us to adapt it to our own tradition. Right? None of us are going to be Mohawks, probably, unless you already are. But it's a really powerful tool. And Native people are actually, some of them, not all of them, are sharing things that they know because they say we eat out of the same bowl. And we have to learn to take better care of that. So a Thanksgiving just simply starts with the people, and I think that's interesting because it goes from the earth to the sky, but people go first, and they say that's because people cause all the problems. So we've got to like kind of pause before we say thank you, and we just like connect to each other and say thanks to all of us because we're the ones always messing stuff up. That's interesting. So today I'm just incredibly grateful to be here talking to you guys. It's really moving to me. My old colleagues back there understand here, and some of you old timers, how all this got to be and what it takes. And I just feel really honored to be here on the stage talking to you. So I want to say thank you to the professional staff, colleagues. Rats. Okay. I want to say thank you to all the honor staff and the residence life people. I see Jamie Penben hanging in the corner there. All the people who put this together, in terms of people whose work this is, I want to say thank you to you all. And I want to say thank you to the students who make this happen because none of this would be anything without you. And I really want to say thank you to the young people who are the first year people that just walked in the door like yesterday. Like, what's going on? Yeah, it's big. It's an auspicious day. So I want to say thank you and send my greetings to all of you. Now here's another little cultural technique. So when I say, this is going to be like call and response. So we'll go through with people, and I'll say, so I'll send my greetings and thanks to all the people. Do you guys agree with me with this? And then you say, yeah, just kind of go, yeah. Or you can say, Okay, so send greetings and Thanksgiving to all the people. Do you agree with me? You join me in this? Yeah, okay. See what happens? It's less of a like me just going this way and starts to be reciprocal. It's a dialogue. All right, so then it's simple. Earth to sky. So thinking about the water, for example. Like some of you guys may have noticed that there's a lot of water around these days. And the water that nourishes us, that's in this glass, that when we're hot and dirty, jump in the pond, take a bath. And if you ever go camping for a couple days and you don't get a shower, you know how good it feels when you come back to the water? Yeah. And you know, we're basically water. Water is synonymous with life. So I'm grateful for water. You join me in that? Okay. Earth, at our feet, the brown earth, the vitality and the life in the soil is extraordinary. And 1 teaspoon of earth has billions of uncounted organisms. It's actually a living thing. It's like a living mantle of the earth. It's not dirt, it's soil. Okay, and it's deeply alive. And everything that we had today, all that food, came out of soil. In fact, everything that we have comes out of the earth. I'm grateful for the earth. You join me? Okay. And then down low still, talking about plants. So if you enjoyed coffee or tea or soda today, that came from plants. A lot of medicines still come from plants. All of our good foods. Maggie gave me cucumber in there, which is delicious. And, oh, one thing important to remember about plants is that their roots hold the soil together. So they actually like hold everything together. So, you guys grateful for plants? Okay. Next up, animals. They're good teachers. Some of us eat them. Pets and companions, they're almost like part of our family sometimes. Like four-legged people. You guys thankful for the animals? Okay. Next up, what do you think? Someone got it? Trees. Yeah. So a lot of you have trees that you're close to. That's pretty cool. Trees, shade on a hot day like today. I'm getting ready for winter at my farm, so I've been splitting wood for a couple weeks and hoping that I'm on time. So I heat with wood, and I'm really grateful. Like every time I open up that tree and get that, I know that's going to help keep my house warm in the fall. So it makes it very tangible to me. Who loves to climb trees? Yeah. All right. You guys thankful for trees? Okay. Beyond that, birds. Anyone see that feather kind of waft in just before we started? That was cool. Birds are amazing. Birds are actually like the internet of the forest. And maybe next year if you do birds, invite me back. Because I talk a lot about birds. Birds are actually perceiving you all the time on the landscape. So you should know that. That they kind of understand you. They read your body language. I don't know exactly what it is. And they send out the signals. So if you walk up to the forest there, if you kind of stop at about there's like the little hockey rink. Stop there and listen to what's going on in the forest. And when you go past that hockey rink, you'll hear bird alarms go through the forest in a concentric ring. So the birds are talking about you. And depending on how you walk, they're telling a different story about you. Okay? So birds are all over the world are considered messengers. They're carrying information. You guys grateful for birds? Okay. Beyond that, we'll just talk about sky world, things up there, sun. You want to see the moon last night? It's really beautiful, almost full. Sun, moon, stars, things beyond that. We put all these gratitudes together, and we send them out. Say thank you. Y'all join me? Okay. Thanksgiving address. So could you see how to incorporate that in a business meeting? Or in a community meeting here, when everybody's kind of annoyed about something terrible that happened about probably the doors. Right? You can remind Dr. Stevens about the Thanksgiving address when he's like, gets going and things. Say, hey, we should just stop and say thank you for a second. Okay, so that's a really good tool, and the Mohawks lent it to us to use it. They said, we want you to use it. Use it in your own way. Dr. Thank you. Okay. Real quickly, I just want to say that a little bit about myself. I'm Michael Blackwell. It's complicated. I've done a bunch of different things. I worked in community-based education, alternative education. My passion is really like the psychology of learning and growth and human development and change. I was very blessed and fortunate to work with University Honors for 5 years as an assistant director, and I worked in the HRC for the first year. I'm now at the YMCA at Virginia Tech, and I wanted to take just a second and kind of say a little bit about the why and encourage you guys to think about the why, because there's a lot of good stuff that goes on there. And who knows their aspirations for student learning? Raise your hands, all 5. In memory, committed to memory. Okay, you have work to do. Thanks. Yeah, Jamie. The why is a great place to explore the aspirations, things like curiosity and civility and leadership and courage and service. Good question. Yeah. Okay. So in this talk, I figured you didn't really want to know information about trees. That's what Google's for, right? So that's not really good. So my objective for this talk is that if I come back in a year and talk to you guys, that you've developed some kind of meaningful relationship with trees. And I feel like the chances of that are practically nil. Because nobody does that. It takes too long. George O'Keeffe says, to know a flower is like to have a friend, and nobody really has time. But I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to try to put some stuff out there, and I know that this is exciting this year of the tree thing, because you've got these big ideas, and there's a bunch of people who are kind of intense about it. I know the type. And I feel like they might actually take some of this stuff and make some things happen. So next year, maybe we'll have another kind of conversation, trees or birds. So I want you to do stuff. Before we go there, before we talk about trees, we got to talk about nature some, because nature doesn't really exist. I'm sorry to say, that's mostly true. Nature doesn't really exist. Studies have shown it. One thing you should know about me, that under sort of the, it's actually the etymological root of the word tree means base. So like the foundation of this talk I'm telling you today is 15 years that I've been going to one spot at my farm and leaning against a tree and like staring off into the distance or throwing rocks in the creek or whatever. 15 years in every season. Summer, spring, winter, fall, every time of day, night, morning, dawn's a great time, evening. So that's kind of like, that's the experience that this information comes out of, okay? So everyone had a tree. Someone with a strong story, tell me really quick, how did you come to know your tree? Like, how did that happen? Speak up. Okay. So tree in front of the grandparents' house that many generations of people have climbed. So it's connected to these family stories. Okay. Does that sound familiar to somebody? It's like a place where the family connects, is sort of rooted? Who had that? Okay. Who had like play? Who connected to? Okay. Lots of play in trees. That's interesting. What else are we missing? Huh? Planted a tree. Nice. Anybody else here with wood or do something like, make something with trees? Apple trees or fruit trees? Anybody get their food from trees? Okay. That's usually pretty significant because we like to eat. So 2 years ago, when did we plant the HRC beach out there? Okay, so at the time, I gave you guys a charge, and I said, actually, I think I used the word hallow. Hallow, H-A-L-L-O-W, or like consecrate, like to make this something special. So I think I said, like every time you go by, touch it and say hello, or like go do something there, study or talk to a friend. Who did that? Couple. Okay. Next year I want this to be different. I want people to be like, we all did this. What did that do? Was there any result effect from that, of connecting to the tree?
I watered it.
Yeah. She cared for it. Yeah, it did. Okay. All over the world, except maybe here, traditional people talk about connections to nature with a terminology that's often they use the concept of cords or ropes or even like veins. So what they would say is, if you walk out of your front door every day and you go by a tree and you say hello to it or give it some water, that event, like a little thread of connection happens between you and it. And just, it's like a little shining filament at one time. Okay? I've been thinking recently, this occurred to me, that in 1986, I kissed Janine Delosier by that beech tree on the south side of West Ambler-Johnston. And every time I walk by there, I think about that sometimes. So that's like a little thread of connection. This one thing happened there, right? Okay, so kind of like Katie's story, multi-generations, if every time you went by the tree you touched it, okay? What if you kissed a boyfriend or girlfriend out there? What if you asked someone to marry you there? What if you, this is funny, it's kind of a tradition, and I don't recommend it because I think it's also against regulations, Jamie. Can you bury the placenta of your children here on campus? Okay, don't do that. But maybe, you know, the HRC has gotten a lot of stuff changed so that you guys can have an amazing experience here. Because some of you will get married to people here and you're like, you know what? You'll bring your kids by and you'll say, this is where I met your mother. Your placenta is here. What if the ashes of your grandparents were there over many generations? You see a progression there? These shining filaments grow, and for lack of a better term, I have to use a term like energy. And those connections start to form and grow, and then like energy and life kind of moves through them. So, who has a connection? We looked at kind of a spectrum, let's say, over here, these kind of small, thin filaments, connection with a tree or a bird or whatever it is, versus this really dense kind of multi-layered network suffused with emotion and information. Where are you on the spectrum in connection to the natural world? You don't have to answer, I'm just kind of putting that out there. So if you go to every time you go out the front door, if you walk by that tree, connect to it, be out there with friends and community, make things happen there, that connection will grow and grow and grow and grow. And then really good things will start to happen. Because you're basically developing, like, let's just call it a network for information to move back and forth. Because we live on the earth, and we're here all the time, when you're connected to things in that way, it helps you. It feels good. It's a good thing. It heals you, actually. And all over the world, like, people know this. Modern people kind of put it aside a while ago. We can reclaim it really easily. By the way, can anyone think of when I say a term like a four-dimensional, multi-layered network suffused with energy, emotion, information, and intelligence? Anyone else have an image come into their mind? What else is like that? Huh? Yeah, okay, so gatherings of community. Nice. What else? Anyone likes that one? Huh? I'm sorry. I can't. Oh, eat food. Totally. Yep. All right, this is one of them where the teacher has an answer in mind, and I'm just going to say it. This is the very structure of the brain. You know what brain cells are called? Yeah. And they have what? What are the little branchy parts? Dendrites, which is the Greek word for tree. All right? Thank you. It's awful having a classics guy in the crowd. It's like, is this quote right? Is this my etymology right? Okay, so maybe that's a coincidence, right? That the structure of the brain has the same kind of network pattern that we're talking about forming with things on the landscape. Maybe that's a coincidence, maybe it's not. Okay. Let's go! Hockey. Let's go! Hockey. Old growth! White oak is what you say. When I say old growth, you say white oak. Old growth! White oak. Old growth! White oak. Okay. How come you knew the first one, not the second? Bob Grutter just got an A+. There's no orientation for white oaks. Thank you, we're done. This is so hard to do. Here in Hokie territory. You may ask yourselves, and I'm a Hokie too, I went to school here. Here's my challenge to you, okay? So, our connection to Hokiness, to football, is no accident, right? We got that for reasons. And the reason we got it is because culture helps us understand even what to perceive on a sensory level, how to make meaning, how to remember. Okay? Culture tells us that stuff. It's not, no one comes out of the womb a Hokie or a Cavalier, or actually people probably get angry about that. I did. And it could happen. So there's a designed system that helps us understand what to know, what to see, what to care for. Okay? People make that with their intention. Plato says, risky territory here. Education tells us what to love. We're actually hard and soft wired for certain kinds of things like that, but education, culture helps us understand what to love. So my little kid comes back from a day at school, and She's about, my kids were mostly homeschooled until just recently, but they spent a year in school, so that was like kind of their study abroad experience. And they didn't get honors credit. So she's got this carbon copy thing, Xerox or whatever, and it's suspiciously orderly for a 6-year-old, right? Like all the birds are kind of colored the same way, and the teacher has clearly copied them all, and then it's got that practice handwriting thing at the bottom, a couple lines, and the text is, I mean, how do they make this stuff up? Many seed-eating birds migrate in October. Some seed-eating birds do not migrate. You know? You've been there? It's just like totally boilerplate. The whole thing is no creativity, no imagination. And one of the neat things about learning to kind of pay attention is that at the bottom I see that there's a line that's been erased. So there's just like this leftover pencil stuff that I can see. So I read it really carefully. I'm like, Gabrielle, what's this? I can read it. It says, after all that sort of pro forma text, it says, we all love you. She erased it out. So why'd you do that? Yeah, 6. Second grade, what's that, 5 or 6? She says it wasn't appropriate. So she's learning at a really young age. She's coming from this kind of feral farm experience. She learns really quickly, this is a month or 2 in, right? To be guarded. That kind of affection, a line of connection. So she walks around connecting. But she's learning in school. She's learning in school to be guarded, to be shielded. Rilke says, in the end, it all relies upon our unshieldedness. So, is there a reason why we don't know that behind Lane Stadium, there's 11 acres of some of the oldest trees on the continent? Who knows that? Good start. And it's actually a really perfect kind of microcosm of an experiment in these sort of 2 worlds that are colliding. Because the stadium is there, that temple, and then behind it is another kind of temple, if you will. And one, the culture has thoroughly taught us, like really deeply, it's powerful. Basically, if you want to know how to make culture, rip off football. Because the smartest, most creative people and the resources go into making a culture of football. That's what the smartest people in our culture do, some of them. It's like go into marketing and design those kinds of environments. So, when I'm talking about White Oak Forest there, this is an open question. How do we get 70,000 people, well, we wouldn't want that many in one day because it would kill the trees probably. How do we develop a constituency for a bunch of old trees on the order of what football has? That's a pretty interesting design question, huh? I think it is. In pastimes, in other places, things in nature have those kind of constituencies. I said nature doesn't exist, and that's a concern. It's kind of disappearing. So I'm standing at Kroger's on South Main. What's that? Fancy Kroger, yeah. Stupid Kroger we call it. So go in and get lost, it's so big. Before it was Stupid Kroger or Super Kroger, it was Smaller Kroger. And if you went to Kroger at a certain time of the year, late February, March, depending on the temperature, and you stood in the front parking lot in the evening, people were walking by with their carts, car doors are slamming, and those doors are... If you cast your ears out onto the landscape, spring peepers would sing back there. You guys know what spring peepers are? They're pretty magical. Right on the edge of your hearing. So I'm standing in the parking lot with my kids and we're all listening.